Did you know that? There's just enough bullshit to hold things together in this country. Bullshit is the glue that binds us as a nation. Where would we be without our safe, familiar American bullshit? Land of the free, home of the brave, the American dream. All men are equal, justice is blind, the press is free, your vote counts. Business is honest, the good guys win, the police are on your side, God is watching you, your standard of living will never decline, and everything is gonna be just fine. The official national bullshit story. I call it the American okey doke. Every one of those items is provably untrue at one level or another, but we believe them because they're pounded into our heads from the time we're children. That's what they do with that kind of stuff. They put it in the heads of kids. They pound it in there because they know kids are too young to be able to mount a sophisticated argument against these kind of ideas. And so kids, and up to a certain age, by the way, kids are going to believe everything a grown-up tells them, everything. So kids never learn to question things. Nobody questions things in this country anymore. Nobody questions things. Why? People are too fat and happy. People are way too fucking prosperous for their own good. Everyone's got a cell phone that'll make pancakes and rub their balls now, you know? So nobody wants to rock the boat. And people just gizmo. Americans have been silenced, bought off and silenced by gizmos and toys. And as a result, no one's ever learned to question things. No one questions things in this country anymore. No one questions things. Which misses the point completely. Not important to get children to read. Children who want to read are going to read. Kids who want to learn to read are going to learn to read. Much more important to teach children to question what they read. Children should be taught to question everything. To question everything they read, everything they hear. Children should be taught to question authority. Parents never teach their children to question authority because parents are authority figures themselves and they don't want to undermine their own bullshit inside the household. So they stroke the kid, and the kid strokes them, and they all stroke each other, and they all grow up all fucked up, and they come to shows like this.
The reason I titled this series with a question, were there explosives used on 9/11, and not a statement of fact like, explosives were used on 9/11, is because I don't know if explosives were used on 9/11. However, I have seen enough evidence to make me ask the question, were explosives used on 9/11? Most of this evidence I'll be looking at in this series comes from the documentary 9/11 Mysteries Part 1, Demolition, directed by Sophia Smallstorm, which I believe is one of the best, if not the best documentary about the events that took place on 9/11, and, believe it or not, the documentary that kicked off my journey down the rabbit hole. This series will consist of at least 3 parts, in which I present eyewitness accounts you may or may have never heard before, visual evidence you may or may have never seen before, and finally, evidence I don't think anybody's ever seen, or at least I don't think anybody's ever pointed out before. But before I begin, I must remind you, the purpose of this video is simply to get you to ask the question, were explosives used on 9/11, so that we can petition for a reinvestigation into 9/11 and find the answer to this question together in a public and open forum, without any censored pages or any redacted pages, and with people who have dissenting opinions, not people who are part of some elite echo chamber.
We started running, floor by floor, instead of popping out.
It was if they had detonated.
Yeah,
if
detonated.
They were planned to take down a building. Boom, 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 boom.
All the way down. I was watching it and running. We started running, floor by floor, instead of popping out.
It was if they had detonated.
Yeah,
if they were planned to take down a building. Boom, 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 boom.
All the way down. I was watching it and running. We started running, floor by floor, instead of popping out.
It was if they had detonated.
Yeah,
if
detonated.
they were planned to take down a building. Boom, 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 boom.
All the way down. I was watching it and running. We started running, floor by floor, instead of popping out.
It was if they had detonated.
Yeah,
if
detonated.
they were planned to take down a building. Boom, 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 boom.
All the way down. I was watching it and running.
And others give similar descriptions.
At 10:30, I tried to leave the building, but as soon as I got outside, I heard a second explosion and another rumble and more smoke and more dust. And then a fire marshal came in and said we had to leave because if there was a third explosion, this building might not last.
Like, it sounded like gunfire, you know, bang, 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 and then all of a sudden, 3 big explosions.
Do you know if it was an explosion or if it was a building collapse?
To me, it sounded like an explosion.
But it was a huge explosion.
Of the World Trade Center, the second building that was hit by the plane has just completely collapsed. The entire building has just collapsed, as if a demolition team set off. When you see the old demolitions of these old buildings, it folded down on itself, and it is not there anymore.
That should be it.
It
Thanks
has
very much,
completely
Dan.
collapsed.
The whole side has collapsed?
The whole building has collapsed.
The whole building has collapsed?
The building has collapsed.
That's the southern tower you're talking
Exactly. The second building that we witnessed the airplane.
Here, the police officers, FBI agents, and you can see the 2 towers. A huge explosion now, raining debris on all of us. We better get out of the way.
Chief Albert Turry told me that he was here after the events that took place this morning. He tried to get his men out as quickly as he could, but he said that there was another explosion which took place, and then an hour after there was another explosion in one of the towers here. So according to his theory, he thinks that there were actually devices that were planted in the building.
But I was coming toward the World Trade Center looking for CBS crews and asked a firefighter if he saw any. All of a sudden, there was a roll, an explosion, and we could see coming at us a ball of flame stories high.
Yeah, here's one of the guys who can tell you I'm okay, all right? Here, hold on. You want to call your mother or something? You gotta get back from here. You know that. You gotta get back. All right. Don't worry about me. You need to make calls right now. All right.
William Rodriguez, a maintenance employee at the World Trade Center and the last human being to exit the towers alive, describes a giant blast below his building.
And all of a sudden, we heard an explosion. It was a huge explosion that came from under my feet, meaning that it came from the sublevels between B2 and B3. And then there was a huge explosion at the top of the building. You could hear the difference from the bottom and all the way through the top. The one from the top, which was actually seconds after, was heard very far away. The one at the basement was pretty loud, and you felt your actual feet moving with the floor. The tremor that is sent through the floors, that the walls cracked and the false ceiling totally collapsed. And that's when a person named Felipe David came running into our office saying, explosion, explosion, explosion. And when I saw him, he has all his skin pulled from under his armpits and missing pieces on his face.
But down in the lobby of the North Tower, marble facing flew off the walls. The windows shattered, all the glass blown out.
Right away, a guy from the Port Authority told him the damage was somewhere above the 78th floor. But all you had to do was look around. It was obvious. Something had happened right there in the lobby.
You just saw that all the windows were blown out. The lobby looked like the plane hit the lobby.
Like the plane hit the lobby. What caused so much wreckage in the lobby?
I'm going to have to interrupt really quick here because I know some people will say that the damage in the lobby is evidence for how hard the plane hit the building. However, if the damage in the lobby was caused by the plane impact above, and there's a lot of damage in the lobby, if that damage was caused by the plane impact above, then every window in the building should have been broken. However, as you can see from these pictures here, there are windows not too far from the impact zone that weren't even broken. And not only that, but we do have other people reporting explosions going off in the basement well before the towers fell.
Construction worker Philip Morelli was in North Tower sub-basement 4 at the time of the first plane strike.
I go downstairs, the foreman tells me to go to remove the containers. As I'm walking by the main freight car of the building, in the corridor, that's when I got blown. I mean, the impact of the explosion, of whatever happened, it threw me to the floor, and that's when everything started happening.
Blown to the floor. Let's hear what happened next.
I was racing, I was going towards the bathroom. All of a sudden, I opened the door, I didn't know it was a bathroom, and all of a sudden a big impact happened again. and all the ceiling tile was falling down, the light fixtures were falling, swinging out of the ceiling, and I come running out the door, and everything, the walls were down, and now I started running towards the parking lots. There was a lot of smoke down there, there was a lot of people screaming. People came with us running up the ramps.
Philip then ran underground to the South Tower.
You know, you got to go clear across the whole from 1 to 2 World Trade Center. You know what I mean? That's the way you got to run. And then all of a sudden it happened all over again. Something else hit us to the floor. Right in the basement, you felt it. Walls were caving in, everything that was going on. I mean, I know of people that got killed in the basement. I know of people that got broken legs in the basement. People that got reconstructive surgery because the walls hit them in the face.
Firefighter Lou Caccioli told People magazine that as he and others evacuated workers, bombs were going off inside the building.
Not only did Lou Caccioli tell People magazine this, People magazine actually featured what Lou Caccioli told them in this article titled Hell on Earth from September 24th, 2001. Or at least it was updated September 24th of 2001. And it's actually a very interesting article. Not only is there Lou Caccioli's story in it, but there's 2 other stories inside of it that are of interest. First, let's look at what Lou Caccioli told them. So Lou Caccioli, 51, is a firefighter assigned to Engine 47 in Harlem. We were the first ones in the second tower after the plane struck. I was taking firefighters up in the elevator to the 24th floor to get in position to evacuate workers. On the last trip up, a bomb went off. We think there were bombs set in the building. I had just asked another firefighter to stay with me, which was a good thing because we were trapped inside the elevator and he had the tools to get out. He goes on to say more. He says, there were 500 people trapped, and then he explains his story of how he survived. However, there's another interesting story from Kim White, 32, an administrative assistant at The Beast, a financial tech company on the 80th floor of World Trade Center 1, or of 1 World Trade Center. She was talking with an office temp when the first plane struck. All of a sudden, the building shook. Then it started to sway. We didn't know what was going on. I ran towards the reception area. It was completely collapsed, but the receptionist was able to crawl out from under it. People started to panic. We got all our people on the floor into the stairwell, and then people began to calm down. At that time, we all thought it was a fire. Someone was joking, quote, "I hope it wasn't another bomb." Everyone was trying to keep things up tempo. Of course, that bomb is referring to the bomb that was used in the 1993 World Trade Center bombing. So we got down as far as the 74th floor, and someone there pulled us into their office. They had a TV on. We saw that the plane had crashed into the building. Then there was another explosion. So we left again by this stairwell. So, imagine that. Another explosion. The other plane didn't hit. She just says that there was another explosion. So we left again by the stairwell. It took about 40 minutes to get to the bottom. We were trying to get out through the building's lower level when all of a sudden the power shut off and the lights went out. The police yelled, "Run." Then something behind me collapsed. The building was starting to come down. All you saw was black. It was so dark. Now everybody was screaming. Now the interesting thing there, of course, was the other explosion, but also the fact that she saw the building collapsing when she was down in the ground floor. If this was a pancake collapse from the top floor, she should not have seen the building collapsing in the basement the way that she did and other people also did. This is a very interesting phenomena is how the building came down, how people are seeing it coming down in the basement as it's coming down from the top floor. It would not have happened like that unless explosives were going off in the ground floors, causing it to crumble in the basement and lower levels, which is exactly what the eyewitnesses claim that they saw. There's another story in this article about a person who claims that they knew the buildings were targets, and he said that they knew the buildings were targets because they were having us do a lot of evacuation practices. Apparently in the weeks that led up to this, they had a lot of, fire drills or evacuation drills. At least that was according to one person who's featured in this article.
William Rodriguez, helping the firefighters, reports blasts within the North Tower well before it fell.
As I went up, I remember listening to small explosions on the upper floors, and these small explosions were not coming from the area of the impact. It was coming from lower floors.
And when the second plane hit the South Tower,
we heard boom. When we heard boom, inside our building, the North Tower, we heard pa 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 pa. And on the security radio,
I just want to make it crystal clear what he just said. I know he made it perfectly clear himself, but what he just said is really important, so it's really important for me to make it especially clear, or to at least make sure that everyone walks away from this video at least knowing this one point. What he said was, he was in the North Tower, which was the first tower to be hit. He's in the North Tower rescuing people, or helping rescue people. And the South Tower is hit by a plane while he's doing this. When the South Tower got hit, he heard explosions going off in the North Tower. Now what's awesome about this is not only do we have his eyewitness testimony, or in this case I guess his ear witness testimony, whatever. So not only do we have his testimony, we actually have video evidence of this. So let's look at this video evidence.
So we were heading up to the 24th floor of the stairwell, and all of a sudden we heard, Mayday, Mayday, second plane, second plane. Swift, we're looking at each other like, come on, second plane? There's no way there's a second plane. Within seconds, our building got rocked. We got bounced around in the stairwell like pinballs, man. And we just said, you know what? Time to go.
One of the outer rings, another hijacked airliner, crashed into two areas there, killing an untold number of U.S. military personnel in Washington. Another hijacked airliner crashed into two areas there, killing an untold number of U.S. military personnel in Washington.
The security radio, we heard, we lost 65, meaning the 65th floor collapsed.
Wait. What?
The security radio, we heard, we lost 65, meaning the 65th floor collapsed.
Okay, so he's saying that the entire 65th floor in the North Tower collapsed right after the South Tower was hit by a plane. And you know what? Let's say this guy who worked at the World Trade Center for 20 plus years doesn't know what he's talking about. And let's say it wasn't a complete collapse of the 65th floor. Let's say it was a partial collapse of the 65th floor. This would still warrant a ton of questions. Why? One reason why it should be questioned is because the North Tower wasn't hit anywhere near the 65th floor. The North Tower was hit between floors 93 and 99. The other reason is because it happened so shortly after the impact. William Rodriguez said it happened right after the second tower was hit. Well, the first tower was hit at 8:46 a.m., and the second tower was hit at 9:03 a.m. Thus, the 65th floor of the North Tower collapsed 17 minutes after it was impacted on the 93rd and 99th floor. This is something that not only should be questioned, but it should be something that should be investigated. And if the 9/11 Commission report didn't investigate this, then it clearly didn't do a good job investigating the events that took place on 9/11, and thus that alone should warrant a reinvestigation into these events.
And as we went down the stairwells, you could hear the actual collapsing inside the buildings. You heard rumble, you heard the cracking of the walls, pieces falling right next to us of the actual building.
And Stanley said, you know, I think that tower could come down. And I don't know why I'm telling this man this building is going. But I knew it was not over. I said, there's no way. That's a steel structure. That's just draperies and carpets and furniture burning. You know, there's no way. And I didn't finish my sentence when the tower started to slide. And I can still remember hearing, first of all, this boom, boom, boom explosions.
I got this real moron thing I do. It's called thinking. And I'm not a very good American because I like to form my own opinions. I don't just roll over when I'm told to. Sad to say, most Americans just roll over on command. Not me. I have certain rules I live by. My first rule, I don't believe anything the government tells me. Nothing. Zero. Nope. And I don't take very seriously the media or the press in this country, who in the case of the Persian Gulf War were nothing more than unpaid employees of the Department of Defense, and who most of the time function as kind of an unofficial public relations agency for the United States government.